don't see it working. Oh, maybe it is working. Oh, interesting. So what's up, guys? It seems like it's working. I can see you guys there, but all my screen right here says offline, offline. Nothing's working. So who knows? You got to love technology, right? So what's up, guys? My name is Ryan here with Tampa Carry. We're going to be having another awesome Clubhouse Live. Oh, you know what? I didn't start the Clubhouse. I probably need to do that. Let's click the start button. Start the room. Bob, what is up, buddy? Shane, Wayne, what's up? Greg, I don't know what the problem is. Ever since that Facebook meltdown that happened on Monday, like most of the technology, all the apps and all the stuff that we have that's like integrated, like none of it is working. It has been a disaster. So who knows? But, you know, it takes a lot of bandwidth to delete a ton of information off of your platform, right? What is up, Joe Yeager? How are you?
I'm doing terrific. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, man.
Awesome. Awesome. Good to be here. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Troy. Hi, Eddie.
Let's see here. Okay, so we're still waiting on Tiff and everybody else to get on here. Tracy, what's up? So make sure you guys, if you want to join the conversation, head over to Clubhouse. I'll put a link down in the description below. You guys can join into the conversation. We're going to be sharing a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening in this last week. Joe, I'm sure you heard about this, buddy, but a Pennsylvania man committed a triple murder in Lakeland. Did you hear about this?
Is this with a little girl, or is this more recent?
This happened Friday, I believe.
No, I did not hear about that one.
Okay, so this is on Saturday. Following a 2-hour manhunt, Polk County Sheriff's detectives arrested a 39-year-old man. His name is Sean, after 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated battery. So this guy, he works for a Pennsylvania company. He was down here in Florida working at the Publix headquarters doing some electrical work. And I guess there were 5 coworkers all living in this house as they're doing this work at this Publix headquarters, right? So this guy, the suspect, he gets into a verbal argument and then turns into a fist fight. He then leaves the job site. And his 4 roommates just thought, you know, this guy probably just got upset, probably just went back to Pennsylvania, doesn't want to be here anymore. So later that night, he returned home at 9:45 a.m. the next day, where he murdered 2 of his coworkers that were asleep by beating them to death with a baseball bat. That's a pretty like violent, pretty aggressive death, right? I mean, that's pretty crazy. Then another coworker realized that this guy was beating them and hurting them, so he approached, tried to help, and then it looks like, I think he stabbed that third coworker to death. What do you think, Joe?
Insane is the first thing that comes to mind, and
I can barely hear you, buddy.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit. I'm not sure if it's me or if it's you.
I can hear you clearly, so I'm not sure. I'm in the same room that I usually am.
Okay.
Hello?
All right, I can hear you. Go ahead, man.
Okay. I, Obviously, it's insane to say the least. If he had a firearm, which I'm glad at least he didn't have a firearm, not that this would have made it better for anybody, who the hell knows what else he would do in between, except for these people.
Yeah, this dude is.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, this guy is obviously like absolutely crazy. Hold on. I guess we're having a lot of technical issues. So keep going, Joe.
The question I have is, regardless of when somebody gets this upset, and I don't know whether the victims knew his history of anger issues, if they have experienced it before, because this is the first I'm hearing of it. And for them to either not have any form of protection or being aloof or complacent about security, because I can tell you this, I'll give you an example. I live in a gated community. Very calm here. The neighbors, I can tell you, are pretty complacent because whenever I speak to them and say, for example, we don't go on a trip because we don't want to leave the girls alone overnight or for a week, even though they're old enough to be alone, they go, and they go, what are they worried about? Well, I say, home invasion, anything that could be weird, one of the workers here. They said, no, you never have to worry about that. Here, and we know we follow enough to know that this can happen in the best of communities. So I think the attitude of the victims, and again, I don't know enough to pass judgment or be critical. I don't want to be. But if you know that someone is that upset, if you know that someone has anger issues, how are you preparing for it? What extra security measures are you taking? It sounds to me, and again, without knowing enough, the people on this call and the people that are watching, I think we're all aware of condition yellow even when you're sleeping.
Yeah, I wouldn't say condition yellow, in my opinion, probably doesn't work very well when you're sleeping, right? I think that's a perfect definition of when you're in condition white, which for everybody that doesn't, know about or hasn't heard about the Cooper color code, it's basically 4 different levels of awareness. So condition white is, imagine you're sleeping. You're in your house. All your doors are locked, like you're zoning out, watching TV after a long day. That's condition white. That's when you're like pretty oblivious to the world. You're drinking a bottle of wine. I don't know if you drink a whole bottle. You're having a beer, like you're pretty chill and pretty relaxed. Now, obviously, condition white is okay if you're sleeping, but if you're out walking through Publix, condition white is very, very dangerous, right? That's what we call the sheep. Those are the people that are completely oblivious to the world, to society, and those are what the bad guys are looking for. So when we're out in the world, really we want to be in, and let me give you, before I tell you that, condition red is the opposite of condition white. Condition red is, holy crap, my gun is out of my holster, it's in my hand, within a microsecond, I am going to have to kill somebody, okay? So we don't want to live our lives in condition white, and we don't want to live in condition red, because both of those are bad. We kind of want to be in the middle. Where we should be is condition yellow. So that means we are generally aware of our surroundings and the people who occupy it. And we're searching for pre-incident indicators that people have violent or evil intent. And then once we identify a person who has violent or evil intent, then we would move into condition orange, which means I've identified a threat. I'm now moving through the OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. and I'm trying to figure out what my next course of action is going to be. So go ahead, Joe. Now that we've explained what the Cooper color code is, keep going.
So what I consider condition yellow when we are home and sleeping, I mean, we have a home plan, right? A home defense plan here at home. So we have alarms on every window. We have bars and alarms.
Joe, let me ask you, are you talking into like a external mic, or are you talking directly into your phone?
No, I'm speaking on my headphones.
Okay, can you just do directly into the phone?
Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear you solid, Tef. Okay,
I think it's Joe. It's something with Joe then. Because, Joe, we can't hear you. We can barely hear you.
Okay. I will change that.
So, Tiff, while we're waiting for Joe, what do you think about this triple murder in Lakeland?
Ryan, I would love to give you my input, but I was doing the tech issues here trying to figure out what was happening, so I didn't really pay attention. Is it that, did you say somebody from Pennsylvania?
Yes. Yeah, so a guy was down here working at the Publix like headquarters doing electrical work or whatever. Must have been a pretty long-term contract because they rented a house, him and 4 of his coworkers, and then the guy just lost it and decided to
mental health issues, right?
beat 2 of them to death with a baseball bat, and then he stabbed the 3rd one to death.
Yeah. So that's obviously either he's just completely freaking insane, or, you know, something happened that, because that seems very personal to beat someone to death. That's just crazy. So, but
can you hear me now?
Am I surprised? Yeah. Perfect, Joe. Okay. Here we're thinking it's Clubhouse. Ha, perfect.
But in reality, I
heard you guys fine.
Okay. In reality, it was an elderly person with their, what is it called? Their Cricket cell phone.
Ryan, you're so mean.
Joe can't get his Cricket cell phone to connect to Clubhouse.
Well, yeah, it's actually crooked rather than cricket. But
crooked. Okay. All right. Okay, so Joe, explain to me, what is condition yellow to you, like when you're sleeping? What does that mean to you?
He's having a home defense plan.
Okay.
So having the extra security on every entry point in the house, whether it be floodlights or motion sensor lights that are extremely bright in a patio in the front of the house, having bars, alarms, things of that nature at night. When I sleep, not that this necessarily will prevent someone from coming in altogether, but I'm a fairly light sleeper. So if there is any unusual noise in the house, I wake up.
Yeah.
And so if there is a loud noise in the house, even if they break the glass of the front door, by the time they remove everything there is to remove, it buys me the time to grab my bedside firearm, my shotgun. I'm ready. I've got a plan. We've got walkie-talkies. We got a code word. So there is going to be time. That's condition yellow. It doesn't mean I have to sleep with one eye open. It means I've given myself that period of time, that couple of minutes extra with all that security to either have the firearm, the culprit get scared and leave. Wake up the neighbors, but certainly wake me up, and then everybody knows what they have to do. So to me, that's a condition yellow while I'm sleeping. I've taken some steps to increase the security that I have and the time that I need to be able to get ready.
Yeah, I would call that an early warning system. I have a video that's going to publish on YouTube sometime this week. I'm not sure what day it's scheduled. But guys, when I say this is like a terrifying, scary video, this is terrifying. So this guy, the family is sleeping. It's a 2-story house. The bad guy was able to make entry into the home, find a knife in the kitchen, and then you can watch on the home surveillance footage as this guy is like rifling through stuff in the kitchen. He's looking in the living room, and he's like going through stuff looking for valuables. It's absolutely terrifying to think that this guy was inside the house, had a knife, and the homeowners had zero clue that this guy was there. And this is why, you know, I think people get very confused at what the purpose of a home alarm is, of what dogs are, or even cameras, right? People think that cameras, a dog, that's what's going to actually stop the bad guy. The purpose of those items is to tell you that the bad guy is here. The purpose is to tell you that the fight has started. Does that make sense? But bad guys are not afraid of those items.
Yeah, it does. It reminds me of something I used to say a long time at the academy. Don't say it much more. Say glass is to keep honest people out.
Yeah.
And with cameras and everything, you see what they're doing. It's not necessarily a deterrent. Same thing with certain locks and deadbolts and floodlights. You know, it's interesting that when someone's in your, you know, getting in your house like that, the night vision camera can show you everything they're doing.
Yep.
And it doesn't call the police. It doesn't necessarily wake you up. And like I say, it's crazy that type of thing goes on, especially when you know that, you know, they have to have the ADT sign, or they have the, you know, the sign about I have something that's faster than 911 or something. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, dude, Kareem, let me tell you, man. So the other day, Tiff and I are sleeping, and all of a sudden, like, our house erupted. Fire, fire. Like, that's the automation voice or whatever. The smoke alarms are going off. It keeps yelling, fire, fire. Man, I jumped out of bed so stinking fast, and Tiff and I both come charging downstairs. I fully expected, like, I don't know, our kitchen to just be engulfed in flames, right? And I get down there, and Paisley's like, I was making toast. So she's, dude, she's.
As Ryan is butt naked sliding down the stair railing.
I was not naked, actually, which was shocking because I usually am. I fell asleep wearing shorts, or my daughter would be even more traumatized than she was already. But she's like, I go down there just to check, right? Like, you know, let's just make sure everything's okay. And Paisley's crying. Dad's so mad at me. I said, I'm not mad at you. I was just trying to figure out, you know, what the hell's happening. I'm trying to keep us all alive. But it's, go, Tiff.
What I was just going to say, when you're in the dead of sleep, though, it takes some time to understand what was happening. Because my thought when I heard the beeping going off, I'm like, oh, it's an Amber Alert. There's an Amber Alert. So my first thought was just that the phones were going off and that it was an Amber Alert. So
you thought that was an Amber.
I know.
It was pretty wild.
Right. I was sleeping, you know, like I wasn't. But what I'm saying is when you're in the dead of sleep, like you really have to have a plan. That's not the time to think of it, because when you're waking up in the dead of, you know, from a dead of sleep, you're confused. And it takes a few minutes for you to like, be like, wait a minute, where am I? What's happening? You know, so.
Yeah, and it goes to show, like, you know, Joe made a really good point. He said that him and his family, they actually go through, this is the plan. If the alarm goes off, if a burglar is in the house, this is exactly what we're going to do. And I'm sure, Joe, you guys rehearse that plan, because in the heat of that moment, if you simply talked about it once, all that is gone. Like you're going to be in a panic and you're not going to know what to do.
I actually try to surprise the family from time to time, and I ask them before they go to sleep, or I might just burst into the room. I might just yell the word and see how they act.
Okay, so your code word, you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have done it so many times when we first started it. Now, maybe every couple of weeks or so, just out of nowhere, I'll just do it. And I'll just burst into the room. I also worked some self-defense scenarios with them, just basic self-defense if they get grabbed, or you know, things to say, things to do. And they're not enthusiastic about it, but I still try not to force it, more of explain the necessity of it, because you're also talking about two 17-year-old girls that are going to be going to college.
Yeah.
And you hear the stories that are happening in colleges across the country. And you even put a video not too long ago about these two girls entering, whether it's their dorm room or their apartment door outside, and somebody runs across the street, robs the one girl, the other girl's doing nothing, and thankfully he didn't kidnap them. He just wanted their purse or iPhone because they were not paying attention.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I know what video you're talking about. Yeah.
Remember that, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to explain to, for example, for the longest time, my girlfriend goes to me, I don't need that because I have you to protect me. And I go, I'm not with you 24/7. I travel sometimes, you travel sometimes. I get out of the house to go to the range, give classes, go to meetings. I'm not going to be here all the time.
Sure.
And you go shopping and doing things on your own too. So the second best thing I can do to being there to protect you is to teach you how to protect yourself. And so that is how they take that on, and that is how they understand it. I don't force them to go to the range, but I expect my girlfriend to dry fire at least 3-4 times a week. And I give her drills, and I check with her, and we go through the scenario. So I think, to me, that is what condition yellow is. If you're going to have someone that goes out of the house and he's angry, and hearing stories like this, I don't care who you are. If you leave my house angry, my house, and you know how calm I am, and you know I don't know if in this story these victims actually had such a huge fight, but it sounds like someone took it very personally. I'm still going to lock my door. It doesn't matter where I'm at and who's coming and who's going.
Yeah, sometimes with crazy people, you can't just lock the door, right? Like, that's not enough. This guy in this Lakeland incident, he was determined. Like, he left. He came back the next day, right, at 9:30, 9:40 in the morning with the intent to kill these people. So that's somebody who spent the whole night thinking about it, right? And this just goes to, like, when we talk about this concept of gun control, firearm registration, reducing high-capacity magazines and stuff. When you have somebody who is going to leave, think about it, create a plan of attack, and then come back and execute, how do you stop a crazy person like that?
You take your double-barrel shotgun and you shoot him in the leg.
Yeah? Insert Joe Biden reference?
Yes.
Or you acknowledge the fact that the, quote, cooling off period is actually a planning period and isn't helping the situation. That's another way to look at it.
Very true. That's very, very true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me tell you guys, I have something really exciting to talk about that I wasn't planning to, but I'm going to do it anyway. We went to an event last week, or 2 weeks ago, and we learned about this organization that Tiff and I are going to get heavily involved in. We are going to integrate our businesses with it because this is a fight. This is a mountain that, they say you find your true purpose when you find a mountain that you're or a hill that you're willing to die on. So this organization, I want you guys to all go Google it. I want you to join it, and I want you to really think about it. It is called Operation Underground Railroad. So this organization is created by, I think he is a former CIA agent. And what he is doing, the mission of this organization is to stop human trafficking of children. So we're going to post a link. I was trying to get it just now, and I'm having a hard time. Tiff's trying to get it for me. If I can get it, I'll post it in the chat. If not, I'll post it on social media later. His name is Tim Ballard. But what this organization is doing, it looks like I did just get it. So let me copy it. Let me post it inside of the chat here. So what this guy is doing is they're gathering money, and then he has got a professional Hollywood makeup artist that is getting him to make he looks like a different person. They're finding these sex traffickers, and they are either going there and arresting them in like undercover stings. It sounds like some of the stuff that I've learned, He's actually going and finding the children, negotiating with these bad guys, and then rescuing the children. Like, you want to talk about putting yourself in harm's way. This guy is freaking doing it, man. So there's a documentary that's going to come out about all of this in January. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on this. Your thoughts on how we can stop and really fight human trafficking. Something that I learned recently that I had no idea about. They believe more people are being held in slavery today, 2021, than back in the 1800s when slavery was legal across most of the world.
Brian, there are only over 40 million people human trafficked. 75% are women and kids. And I did a video on this on my Life in Perspective channel a couple of months ago. It was
Shameless
about
plug
human
time.
trafficking. What's that?
I said shameless plug time. It's okay, Joe. I appreciate you.
No, I'm just saying the reason you're mentioning that, and the reason I did this video is because I was talking about the way to recognize potential human trafficking victims, the things that are being done, the numbers, the profits of that business over $150 billion a year.
Is that true?
Profits.
Is that true? 150 billion a year?
150 billion in profits
that they know of and will acknowledge. Because to your point, Ryan, the thing about it is, it's not new. The only sad thing about it is that, unfortunately, what you're talking about is really a blip on the screen. I hate to pick on my adopted home state of Georgia and Florida, but reason why I get on Florida, because Florida is a party state that has a lot of Caribbean traffic that goes on.
Okay.
When you look at the sex trade as a whole, and also labor, when you look at, I hate to say it, certain nail shops, we've talked about massage parlors before.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but anyone that comes in and they didn't go through the process, meaning they filed, they got their federal court hearing and got in legally, every single last one of those people are potentially going to be introduced to this new slave trade. And it's everyone wants to get sensitive about talking about making sure people come in legally, but that's kind of the point of coming in legally. So you're not a victim of the sex trade or white slavery with labor. I mean, people just don't understand areas that have a high concentration of individuals that didn't legally come through the process have a high concentration of, unfortunately, sex trafficking and a lot of underage sex trafficking.
Sure. What's also scary, I was listening to an interview with Tim Ballard yesterday, and he was sharing how, they just did a big raid down in Haiti. There was a woman down there who was the big kingpin of sex trades or whatever. And when they did the raid, they have a camera crew. They're wearing GoPros on their heads and stuff. And one of the problems is they get in and then everybody scatters like cockroaches, right? So he said when they made entry, there was actually dozens of children actively being raped by Americans. So American men are going down to Haiti on vacation because it's a lot easier to do those kind of evil things in Haiti than it is to try to do it here in America. And it's just very scary to think, that this kind of stuff is happening to children, how scared these children are, tied up, held captive, whatever. And,
well, Ryan, do you remember what Tim Ballard said when he spoke was that these kids are even, sold by their parents and families. And they know it. So they really are in those rooms, he said, feeling like there is no chance that somebody will ever come and get them because the police, it was the police. Sorry, back that up. He said that the local police are in on it And so these children just have no chance. Like, if it's not outside help coming to get them, nobody's looking for them. Nobody's going to try and get them because the police and stuff are all paid off by these human traffickers because it is such a large industry and they make so much money that they just pay everybody off.
And also realize, Ryan, that the amount of money that governments are spending and law enforcement is spending on human trafficking rescue, so to speak, or search and rescue, is less than 1% of the profits made by human trafficking.
Oh, wow.
So when you have
that's pretty shocking.
$150 billion, $150 billion, which is, by the way, more than the profits of, take any company out there, whether it's Facebook, Apple, ExxonMobil, Google, Pfizer, take any of these companies. None of these companies' annual profits reach 150 billion. That's how big that business is. And if you spend less than 1% of the profits, you can't expect the results to be that significant by comparison to the tragedy. It's going to be very difficult to make a dent. But again, every life that you save from that is good news. It's a bright spot, but it really is a drop in the bucket by comparison to what is actually being made. And think about it, over 40 million people.
It's
40
wild.
million victims.
It's wild.
It is.
It's wild because, like, I think in the majority of Americans' minds, slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, right? I think most people just assume slavery ended. Maybe there's some human trafficking, whatever, but, it's a very small number. You got to think, we used to have slaves, like, on plantations and stuff. It was very out in the open. But today they're saying that the number of slaves has doubled from what it was back in the day. That is shocking to me. Shocking.
Well, I hate to say like this, it really shouldn't be, because if you have, and I'm not picking on any particular ethnic group when I say this, but if you go to an area of a neighborhood that has a strong majority of somebody that's not from here,
Yeah.
and you go into one of their restaurants, and one thing you'll notice, it'll be one person in charge, and there'll barely be 3 other people out of the 25 there that can speak English.
Yeah,
People
but Kareem, I always assumed that was like, a family came here from Vietnam, right? And they're learning English, but while they're working or whatever. I've never been to a place like that and thought, oh, that's slave labor.
Nope. The thing about that is that's one of those old 1970, 1980 ideals that really isn't what's going on now. When you stop and look at, say, take a very, very large, like in Georgia and Elementary, we have big, well staffed, clean, beautiful Asian restaurants, and they're quick, they're efficient, they go above and beyond. But if you watch, they're little people that you could basically equate to overseers.
Sure.
And they used to run a commercial. They used to run a commercial up here, and one of the things that was an outrage was that when it showed what happened, it used the nail shop as an example of human trafficking. Well, the people that got upset about that failed to mention that they had busted a couple of massage parlors and nail shops where all the girls that were there were here illegally, and they were all being housed in like one room apartments. All the money that was made was going to like the person who had the nail shop, and then being kicked up to some form of organized crime. And that's something that goes on and brought up in daylight that people kind of don't know about or ignore. But yeah, what you're saying is 100% right. It's just that I guess we've gotten so comfortable with scenarios like that, we never pay attention to it unless it involves little kids. And when it does involve little kids, it's horrible, it's terrible. But we also have to look at the adults, like you were mentioning, that are in this current, they used to call it white slavery. Now it's just slavery, but that's something that's if you don't know what's going on or you don't pay attention to it, you'll ignore it. And like I said, I'm not picking on any particular ethnic group, but I'm just saying when you look at where it's happening, you'll happen to notice it's a line of people that's doing it. And in like a state like Florida, where you have a lot of tourism and you have a lot of common labor jobs and service level jobs. Think about it. Most cruise ships, you can almost count the number of Americans that work on there that's not in upper management. Start in Jacksonville, go down to Miami, go to Tampa, go to Pensacola, and look at this, just the everyday, change the bed sheets, clean the bathroom, or better yet, I'll give you another one that if you're paying attention to certain extended stay hospitals, extended stay hotels or motor lodges, and look at just pay attention to the women that are the housekeepers there, and notice a pattern.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I don't know, it's scary. So you guys are going to hear a lot about Operation Underground Railroad from Tiff and I. I'm going to be pushing it pretty hard and really encouraging guys to go to their website. They've got a lot of videos that you can watch to kind of learn how human trafficking is working, how these guys are actually preying on young people on social media. And, we all have this idea that they're kidnapping kids and they're bringing them to some faraway land and using them for sex or whatever. But it's also happening just right in our backyard. It is happening every single day. What is that guy's name? Glenn Beck shares a story that he said, I've never shared this with anybody before, but he said, I'm a very prominent person. People know who I am. And he said, one night I walked downstairs and there was a man in my house who for a while had been communicating with Glenn Beck's son over social media. And somehow this guy was able to weasel his way in. And thank God Glenn was there and was able to stop anything bad from happening. But it just goes to show that it can happen to anybody on a small scale, on a large scale. And this is a problem that we have to stop pretending does not exist. We have to take action. We have to do something to fight back, or the world's just going to plunge in even more chaos.
And learn from lessons in the past. True story. Servicemen didn't realize that, and I'm going to give you a timeline of kind of when this happened. If you know this program for the name, back when IRQ and Yahoo Messenger was a big thing. Didn't understand that those messages were being logged and that they could be traced.
Okay.
Parents would always ask, he's stationed at, say, Scott Air Force Base. We're in Tacoma, Washington. How did they hook up? How long has this been going on? How have they been corresponding? Now, that used to ruin men and women's service lives way back in the 90s. Okay. Almost 30 years since then, in 2021, same thing is going on with underage people. And like you said, with using the example of Glenn Beck, people communicating from hundreds of thousands of miles away and causing problems. A couple of cases that started this year out were people who were communicating with kids back and forth and sending them money, and they would get a bus ticket, get a plane ticket, whatever, and come to where they are. I mean, it would cripple you if you actually got a chance to know not just the cases that were prosecuted, but the cases that are being currently investigated for individuals, enticing and soliciting a minor. I mean, I don't know what part of Florida it is, but don't they have a teacher down there here about 2 weeks ago that is caught the litany of charges all the way from solicitation to, sodomy. And, she was supposed to be a teacher.
Wow.
What they used to hang her with was her messages she had sent to the guy. He was like 13 or 14 years old. And I'm thinking 97, 98, we were catching people via the messages they sent. Not text messages back and forth with phone, through social media all the time. And fast forward to now, and the same thing's going on. And I always wonder, are we not learning from the lessons that, are we not learning from the examples we have? When you have the kids come in that are adults now that it happened to, 10, 15 years ago, and they're talking about exactly what you're talking about, it feels like, at what point is everyone thinking it's this big reset button and we forgot, okay, it's safe now. That's never going to happen again. But it's going on. And the boldness and blatantness of these people to say, okay, they think they're being smart. They won't go to where the kid is, but they'll send their money to come to them.
Sure.
That's still a crime. That's still a crime. That's still very illegal. And to see that it's going on and it's not getting any better in some areas, it's getting worse. It's really, that's worrisome.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't a human trafficking story, but this is a true story that happened to one of my students. I asked her why she wanted to carry a gun, and she said, I just caught my husband doing something, and now he's in jail right now, and I'm very, very scared of what's going to happen when he gets out. So I could tell she was very upset, right? So I said, if you don't mind me asking, what did you catch him doing? And she said, he is a paramedic here in Brandon. And she was in his office one day and she found this little thumb drive in his office that she'd never seen before. Like, not that big of a deal, right? I've probably got a gazillion random thumb drives and SD cards in my office, but she decided, I'm going to put this in the computer. I want to see what's on this thumb drive. And what she discovered was thousands of pictures and videos of this paramedic abusing and touching women that were in the back of the ambulance. So now you got to think, these are women that have just been involved in some type of severe accident, severe injury, like something bad has happened. Obviously, if he was able to touch them, then they were unconscious, right? So that's how bad this injury was. So this piece of shit is driving them to the hospital, trying to keep them alive, while at the same time sexually abusing them and recording it, videoing it, and saving it. So that, it was a rough class because it was shocking to hear all this stuff, but it just drives home the point that I say all the time, that we never know who we're dealing with. These kind of people, they could be, somebody said in the chat, it could be the teacher at your kid's school. It could be, do you guys remember there was a case up in Pennsylvania where a mother and a father hired a babysitter to babysit their 9-month-old kid, right? So this happened probably 2 to 3 years ago. Hired the babysitter to watch the infant, the baby, and then the babysitter just disappeared. So the baby was gone. So for 2 days, there's this big manhunt. They're trying to find this kid. And then finally they found the babysitter, and the babysitter didn't want to talk. And then finally she decides to open her mouth and say what happened. And she said, I met these people online. They paid me $10,000 for this baby. She said, so on the side of a road or whatever, she met these 2 older women. They gave her the cash. She gave them the baby. And then, boom, they disappeared. So, for 2 more days, there's this massive manhunt for this 9-month-old baby. And then, the traffickers, these 2 evil women, they realize that they're not going to escape with this baby. There's too much pressure, too many pictures, they're going to get caught. So they ended up killing the baby and putting the baby inside of a trash can at a local park. We have to evil exists, people. I think you guys know that, right? Evil exists. We just don't know. It could be the babysitter, could be the landscaper, could be the nanny, could just be some random person at Publix that sees you and gets infatuated and decides that you're the target. We have to really pay attention. And we got to really talk to our children about nobody wants to talk to their kids about what to do if somebody tries to molest them. People don't want to talk to their kids about what to do if somebody tries to kidnap them. Tiff and I have conversations with our children of, if somebody ever tries to take you, this is how you kill that person. You've got to literally 2 or 3 days ago, I was showing Lincoln. Do you feel that? You feel that artery right there? If you can find a piece of broken glass, a knife, my boys carry pocket knives unless they're at school. Take your knife and stab the person right there. If they're driving and they kidnap you, you need to grab the steering wheel and pull it as hard as you can so that that driver crashes. So that hopefully if they crash, they wreck their car, a good person is going to run up and be like, what is happening? And you can start screaming, this is not my mom. This is not my dad. They're stealing me. You know, it's a tough conversation to have, but these are the conversations we have to have if we truly want to protect our children. So I'd like to get your guys' opinions on that.
Well, to start off, you make a very valid point, but here's the scary part about that. Everyone who's a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe know Peter Parker and Mary Jane. But what they don't seem to remember, and when I look at the date on this, it makes me kind of choke up to realize it's been literally 30 plus years since they did it. Stan Lee wrote a comic dealing with both the things you're talking about.
Okay.
And in the comic, Mary Jane was a victim of sexual abuse from her stepfather.
Okay.
Where you go to the cinematic universe, you know, he was just a drunk who she cared about. But in the comic book, one of the issues he talked about was that, you know, like you said, that being abused by someone you know or someone who's familiar to you. The other part of that was a story that Peter Parker had where that familiarity person was a guy that was a little older than him that he met that was basically grooming him.
Right.
You know, the comic is still out there. You can still find it, but they gave them away free when I was in about the the third or fourth grade actually. And the last topic it covered was drug addiction and drug abuse. And when I look at some of Stan Lee's, you know, interviews on the topic as an adult, he talks about how he really was not very familiar with the drug culture and everything like that because he didn't do drugs, but he talked extensively about the grooming instance that he knew about and the situation with being sexually assaulted by someone familiar. And it just goes to me to in this day and age where everyone's woke and all this, that comic book is that old.
Right.
And then we look at the fact that, okay, you take the guy from America's Most Wanted. I can't think of his name, but the movie Adam, where his son was kidnapped and killed.
Right.
I'm old enough to remember when you could go into like a Sears and Roebuck or JCPenney or somewhere and play a video game. And when he got kidnapped and killed, that's when they stopped doing that.
Interesting.
If you know that story, right? If you know that story, him and his mom was in Sears and Roebuck, and he was standing there playing or watching some kids play the Atari display they had up there, and he disappeared. And then, you know, you follow the rest of the story, the true life part of his fiction in the movie. And then I look at that era where when we talk about serial killers and how they, you know, that was something that people talked about more. And then you had, like you said, this is not my mommy and daddy, be able to get away, scream, punch, bite, run away, find a police officer, find another adult. This information and these things are still going on. It hadn't stopped. Now, you can be in a safe area or a safe neighborhood where it doesn't happen that often, but everything you're saying right now, I'm telling you, as a child, I can remember the assemblies we had and the police officers coming in, the firemen coming in, the counselors, and I'm thinking, way back then, with everything that's going on now and everything that's continuing going on, what keeps being this disconnect where people think that, okay, this doesn't happen anymore, but yet people are being convicted and arrested and sex trafficking laws have been updated and child protective laws are being updated. It just blows my mind that, like you said, those conversations seem to be so hard to have until something happens.
Yeah,
no
because nobody wants to talk about that, dude, right? It's like, but
well, it's just not not that you don't want to talk about it. It's also like Paisley gets very upset. Then she gets very scared and she doesn't kind of even just want to do normal kid stuff because she gets really paranoid and has nightmares. So, I mean, like those are normal things that can happen when you let kids know, because kids are, they just want to see the best in everybody and they're so innocent, and they don't know that those things happen unless you share that with them. So it's a very difficult, thing to talk about, but it does need to be shared.
If you don't, the way that I see it is that little discomfort now is going to, one, give them a chance should this ever happen to them, and hopefully never. And two, it goes back to the point, the second best thing you can do for them after being there to protect them is to teach them how to protect themselves.
Yes.
Now, is it 100% proof? No. But a little bit of discomfort now will also prevent a lot of regret on your part later, because I have to believe that there are those parents to whom, if their children were taken, or even a loved one, it could be a parent taken, right? And the mother was abducted, and the child couldn't find her again ever in the store because she's gone.
Right.
Or a husband or a boyfriend can't find his girlfriend or wife in the store anymore because she was taken because they separated. And then you should have said, I should have spoken to her about this. She didn't want to listen, and I just backed away. I should have. You don't want to be in I should have mode.
Sure.
You would have at least said, I've done everything I could to give them a chance, and hopefully it will work. So a little bit of discomfort now is okay. Take it.
Yeah, and also to look at that, when you think about everything, look at Simone Biles, and come to find out what she endured and others endured because they thought that's what they had to be recognized as one of the greatest athletes of a generation. And I think about how now with safe sport, they're focusing a lot more.
Hold on a second, Kareem. So who is Simone Biles? I Googled her real quick. So young woman, looks like she's in gymnastics.
Yeah, gymnast.
Yes.
So what's the deal with her?
One of the best Olympic gymnasts of our generation. The gynecologist, I guess is what his position was, down at the Olympic Training Center, where they were, was sexually assaulting and molesting those guys, and he got found guilty. And they, her and about 50, 60 more that we know of went to Capitol Hill, went to his trial, and told on him, basically told what happened to him.
Okay.
When we talk about Simone Biles and her mental state, you think about you have the pandemic going on, then you have the pressure of going into a foreign country, all their protocols, and then competing against some of the best athletes in the world. Oh yeah, not a week before that, you're in court, giving your account of a sexual assault that happened to you.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that I do remember this now. So that doctor, he's and it was a coach too, right? Wasn't it like one of the gymnast coaches that was involved in this?
No, you're talking about the cheerleading thing now.
Okay.
The cheerleading thing is where the quote coaches and the quote kingmakers were sending sexually explicit texts to the little boys, and they were inviting the girls over. Have you ever watched the TV show The Boys?
I've seen The Boys, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What happened to a girl in that cheerleading deal was basically that scene between the guy that's supposed to be like an Aquaman type character and the girl that's supposed to be like Stargirl.
If you want to be successful, this is what you're going to do, kind of thing.
Right. Or better yet, because they're larger than life and they're heroes, they can get away with it.
Sure.
And that's what was going on with the cheerleading deal. And if you think about it, I hate to say it like this, but you look at gymnastics and cheerleading. Gymnastics, it's one of those things, your heart just hits your stomach when you go, okay, wait, this has been going on for how long? He did it at university where, and no one said anything? And then you look at the cheerleading thing when they did the little show on Netflix, and you think about just the concept of cheerleading. Then you go into the male cheerleaders and what they're doing, and the female cheerleaders what they're doing, and you have to stop and go, cheerleading, really? And you say, well, whatever that stereotypical mean girls thing is nothing compares to what's actually happening
Sure.
in certain instances.
But again, this is happening in corporate America. This is happening in Hollywood. This is happening. The predators are everywhere, right? They're in every field. They're in every industry. They're politicians. They're world leaders currently. They're everywhere, right? And the bottom line is, it doesn't matter how wealthy or successful somebody is. That could be them. It's very hard. And this is why, we go over with our children. There are only 3 people or 4 people that mom and dad actually trust. Like, we have different levels of trust, right? Like, my kids, I think my kids have met Joe. We trust Joe. But if Joe shows up at your school and says, your dad was in a car accident, he told me to bring you to the hospital, you don't trust Joe with that, right? But if your auntie shows up, then you go with your auntie, right? So there's multiple levels of trust for everybody. Not that I don't trust Joe. I trust Joe a lot. But there's multiple levels of trust, and kids have to understand that. Just because they're a neighbor does not mean we trust them unequivocally. That was a big word for me, so I feel impressed.
Well, you know whose pickup line that your bomber dad's been hurt? You know who used to use that a lot, don't you?
No.
Ted Bundy.
Interesting. And what was the line?
What got him caught? Your mom's been hurt. She's something to get you.
Oh, interesting.
One of the last kids. Well, actually, they say the kid that actually what finally got him caught. He walked up to this random school, saw this little girl, knew nothing about her, told her just what you said. She got in the car with him, and that was the child he was caught with when the state trooper, I think it was state trooper or highway patrolman, pulled him over.
Wow. And what is this? Mason in the chat, he said, when I was growing up, we had a code word for an exact situation so that if somebody showed up and said, hey, your mom and dad was hurt, whatever, if they didn't know the code word, then you were not supposed to go with them. So there was an incident, Tiff probably remembers a date. It was sometime last year where some kids got off the school bus. There was like 3 children, got off the bus, and one of the people knew their names, right? Which that's always a big fear for me because people know us on social media. People know my kids' names. They know what my kids look like. So, we tell our kids, people are going to know who you are, right? So this guy knew who they were, and he said, hey, Rachel, your mom and dad was in an accident. They told me to come get you. You got to jump in the car, and we got to go. And the little girl said, what's the code word? And then this bad guy just put their car in drive and took off because that made him realize you are not going to get these little kids.
I was about to say that, you got to teach your kids, like someone trying to kidnap one of your kids, and like, what's the code word? And he don't know it, and then then he'll just drive off. You got to teach them the code word,
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
I just want to make touch a little bit on what Tiffany said. Hi, Tiff. She's right that you don't want to traumatize a kid to the point where they develop a phobia.
Sure.
But when I think about, like I said, the little things they've been trying over the years, through comics telling the story of what happened, through the after school specials trying to tell a story. Unfortunately, you do have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
My thing's like this. However you choose to handle it as a parent, as your child, is how you choose to do it. But unfortunately, we have to do that. We have to have those conversations, like you said, whether it's a code word or whether I don't care who it is. If it's not me or your mom or grandma or something like that, go back into the school or wherever, let them call one of us and we come get you. Stuff like that, like you said, there are bad people everywhere. And they do really, really sick things. But unfortunately, because we as adults know they're out there, and kids are the innocent, and for that part, even adults. You have some adults that may have come from an environment where everyone knew each other, everyone at least is familiar with everyone, and not understand that once they get into a new environment or a different environment, you have to be a little more aware of your surroundings. You have to be a little bit careful with who you're around, or say, for instance, if you're still carrying cash, who you pull out that big wad of tens or 20s in front of, because it could get you hurt.
Dude, I just had a guy in the class on Tuesday, and he said that so one of his neighbors was like a pastor and just like very caring and always trying to help people. So there was a teenager that was really struggling. So he would hire this teenager to come over and just do like small landscaping jobs, pull weeds, whatever. And he said one day he invited this teenager into the house, and he pulled down this coffee can from like in the kitchen, pulled out some money, paid the teenager $20, and then sent him on his way. So then like a week later, I guess this teenager was doing drugs with his buddies, and his buddies are like, hey, I need some money. We need money to go buy more drugs. And this young kid said, I know exactly where we can get some money. So they went into the house, they stole the money. I don't remember if they ended up hurting the man or not.
Right. I was the one that told the story.
Did you tell this to me?
Monday Night Live. Yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
yeah, they killed him. They beat him to death.
So when and where did this happen?
So it was on a Netflix documentary, I Am a Murderer.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, because we were talking that something so simple, you got this kid that you're helping and they're mowing your grass and it's no big deal. And you have this cookie jar that doesn't even have a lot of money in it. It's just got some, change and a little bit of cash in it. So you would never think twice of like, this is something that in a few weeks, I am literally going to be beaten to death in the middle of the night for. So it's just crazy to think of the little things, because a lot of people wouldn't think twice about pulling, a couple $20 bills out of their pocket to pay for their groceries. But the guy behind you is tweaking, and he sees, hey, that's a wall. Meanwhile, most of it's ones, but they don't know or they don't care. So it's just thinking about little things like that. Again, we don't want to live in society, being completely paranoid, and we have to just have, some faith as well, in God, and just believe that he's going to protect us. And when our time happens, our time is going to happen. We can only do so much, right? But it's just little things like that make you think like, oh yeah, maybe it's not a good idea. That's me. I have, a chunk of money. I like to pay cash because I like to not, pay with a credit card. So my purse has cash in it. But every now and then when I pull out my cash, I will think, is this the smartest thing that you can do?
Sure.
Like, are you going to be now loading up your groceries in the back of the car and somebody's going to, rob you or whatever? Because those people are watching. When I'm in checkout, I'm not looking, I'm not paying attention who's pulling out cash, because that's not my MO. But there are people who are watching. So it's just crazy to think.
It makes you wish. Don't you wish they'd take, maybe just $50 million of that they're using for anti-gun and focus it on stuff like this?
Yes. Oh my gosh. That mental health, so much. There's so much that they could be focusing, with that money rather than just pissing it away. And I feel the same with all these elections, how much everybody pays for these, elections. It's ridiculous when some of this money could actually be going to help people.
Yeah, but see, that would make too much sense, right? They don't want to actually fix big problems because big problems take a long time to fix and they are very challenging, right? So they don't want that because you show no success, right? Or very small victories, and people are like, that doesn't help me with my next campaign. What they want is to say, we banned a piece of plastic, my 30-round magazine. We ban that, and that's how we're saving lives. When in reality, that 30-round magazine is not killing anybody. That is not what's hurting people. We have massive problems in society that nobody wants to fix. They want to distract us with, frankly, BS, and the American population buys it because we're very distracted on nonsense. one of the most freeing things you could do is to get off of social media and stop watching the news. It is freeing. These sites are designed to try to stress us out, to encourage clicks so that these sites can make more money.
Yeah, just like the whistleblower from Facebook, basically checked off on what you just said, or I'll give you one better than that. The FBI released their statistics about, violent crime. More people have been stabbed and beaten down than have been shot with rifles. That's all rifles combined. But yet they're talking about assault weapons ban. Make it make sense.
And that statistic has been true for over a decade, right? But nobody wants to talk about that. And when you do talk about it, people are like, one child, if we can save one child, it matters. Okay, I agree with you. If we can save one child, it matters. And I'm going to say something that is probably going to piss people off. 250,000 children are getting aborted every single year. 250,000 children are being aborted every single year. A couple hundred are dying from guns. I agree. One life definitely matters. And the fastest way we can save a ton of lives really quick is to stop allowing people to murder their children.
Well, as you just mentioned, Ryan, the only deletion that counts is the one that's done with a gun. If you stop and think about it, 200,000, a couple of hundred, they seem that we could save one of the couple of hundred, not taking into consideration what led to those situations. Was a situation where it was accidental? I hate to say it was a situation where it was suicide. It's not as cut and dry as like to, make it. And, to your point, it does seem kind of strange that all these things we talked about this evening have gone on. The only one they want to save is, quote unquote, that one child from whatever's going to happen with the gun. Meanwhile, we just had an underhead bridge border full of kids that we can't account for.
Yeah, we don't know who their parents are. We don't know why they're being brought across the border. We just know nothing. And if we ask, then we're racist. If we ask, then we're deemed to be bad people that we don't want immigration. Tiffany's an immigrant. My sister-in-law is an immigrant. Lots of my students are immigrants. I think my family immigrated here, right? So, but I definitely want to know, are these children being trafficked here? Are they bringing drugs? Like, what is happening? And we should be allowed to ask those questions without getting demonized.
Yeah, and you look at the Fox News, and I think a couple of the liberal media showed at one time the little boy that was thrown over the border fence.
Yeah,
and saw the guys run away and leave him. I'm wondering, did anybody want to save him? I mean, all the cameras were rolling, and this little kid is standing there screaming his lungs out, scared to death. Where is his mom, dad, whoever? And I hate to say it, that's kind of normal, whether it's Nuevo Laredo or Baja, California. That's not new. It's not something that's not happening. And here's something interesting now. When they had the pictures of the border agents on horseback, there was this big whoop for about a week.
Yeah.
Okay. The answer was, well, they can't use horses anymore. That's kind of dumb when you think about that terrain.
Oh my gosh, that's where you need a horse.
Exactly. You can only get an ATV so far. And I'm sitting there going, so let me get this right. This situation is something that's been going on forever. There's one of the recruiting videos you'll watch for the Border Patrol is this old band of indigenous people who they're like a long family line of Border Patrol agents. Their specialty is tracking people, and they use horses. So because of one incident that we still don't know what went on, you're going to wipe out an entire law enforcement. And make no mistake, the Border Patrol is a law enforcement branch. For what?
Stupidity. Because they want to change a narrative because a administration is failing epically. like as hard as administration could possibly fail is what's happening. So we got to distract everybody that Border Patrol agents are whipping people when in reality, they're just controlling a crowd of illegal people sneaking into our country. But that's too much logic.
Or I'll give you a better than that. How about this? They say it was the most violent year, what have you, okay? When you go through those numbers, you still have to recognize people who got beat up, beat to death, people who got stabbed, people got beat with some type of billy club or something. I don't remember there being a ban on, bats or knives or anything like that. And then if you look at, if everyone wants to go to New Zealand or England, what happened when they did the thing in England? People started getting stabbed more often.
Yeah, they had. So when they banned firearms in England, or they banned handguns in like the late 90s, they immediately had a 77% increase in violent crime. Happened the exact same year. Because now the bad guys are thinking, how are you going to stop me, Kathy? What if I go and attack Kathy, this nice woman? You can't defend yourself anymore because Kathy is a responsible, law-abiding citizen. And the government said she's not allowed to defend herself anymore. So now Kathy is an easy victim in those areas. And that's why it's BS. That's why we can't allow it to happen in America.
Yeah, I agree. It's crazy because you think about, just the human animal. You can't control what everybody's doing all the time. And in the United States, nor should you. You have the right to kind of do just about whatever you want. Hopefully nothing, reckless, dangerous, or going to endanger anyone else. But in that same breath, you start saying, okay, I hate to pick on Chicago, but let's talk about Chicago for a second. You have to have a FOID card. You have to, do a background check for the FOID card, do a background check for the training, do a background check for firearm. All these things, at the end of the day, they don't want anybody to have a gun up there.
Yep.
Highest body count. I mean, you think it's a scene out of Resident Evil with some of the body counts they have on the weekends. But
Sure.
Then let's go to another little, gem we don't talk about. Let's talk about the District of Columbia, shall we?
Okay.
No one can have a gun in District of Columbia except the privileged. No one really can have a gun in Maryland except the privileged. And yet they stack bodies up there.
Sure.
Meanwhile, a state like Texas, not have a body count all the time. Florida, for all of everything that goes down there. Think about this for a second. Like we were talking about last time we talked. The guy that's the poster child for shoot him in the leg. The cop shot him in the leg. The guy, once he empties his firearm, hops over to the cop and beats him in the head with the very firearm that he just got through shooting at him with.
Sure. So this is the ambush that just happened down in like Miami-Dade area.
Yeah. And nobody, said, I'm waiting for all the gun control, this, and I'm sitting there going, interesting. No one's saying anything about that really.
Yeah.
I remember a time when that would have been the talk. That would have been, we got to get the guns off the street and we got to do this and we got to do that. And you have a checkbox of everything that proves that what they're saying about gun control is wrong. A guy that had a rap sheet, he should, in all supremacy, should have been in prison, but wasn't.
Yeah.
Committed what you call a forcible felony. Because, last I checked, shooting at the cops is a forcible felony. I mean,
yeah, I'm not the smartest person, Kareem, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's not necessarily a safe bet. After he runs out of ammo, he's shot in the leg. The part that gets me is he hops over to the cop.
Right.
Hops over to him and starts clubbing him in the head. And I'm thinking to myself, there's so much wrong with that. But if it was an isolated incident, I would say, okay, this happened. But no, craziness like that happens in some places where you have some of the most, we don't want anyone to hurt themselves. We don't want anyone, but yet they don't attack Big Pharma. we should tell young sailors and Marines and airmen that came through, paracord kills more enlisted people than bullets. And you were in, you know what I mean when I say that. No one's banning paracord.
Sure.
No one's banning, certain sleep aids. But the argument is, we don't want people to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
And I get the sentiment of saying, when you lose a loved one, you don't want, you don't want to lose a loved one, especially, in a situation where it was something dealing with suicide. But to try to say that they shot themselves is worse than if they use some other means of doing it. I don't think it's who's the better villain in that situation. If they commit suicide, it's horrible, it's terrible, and we wish we could have helped them or knew what was going on to help them. But it goes back, like I said, if they were to take about $50 million, that money they're wasting on, quote, gun control and gun control lobbying, and focus on mental health, behavioral health, maybe, more good could be done. Because what the path we're going down now, talking about violent crime is increasing. Well, how could that be when last summer was some of the most peaceful protests we've had since the 60s?
I agree. It was a summer of love, right? Summer of love. It's not like a terrorist organization just took over, what was it, like 3 or 6 blocks of an American city and declared it as a new country? What was that called? It was called Chaz? Like, I never thought I would ever see that.
But wait now. What's the first thing they did? They set up a border.
Yeah, no shit, set up a checkpoint. They set up a border. They had freaking armed guards, and they started charging taxes to the businesses that were located in there. Mind blown.
Didn't they shoot a guy who tried to drive through their barricade?
I think that happened, and then they, if you remember, they demanded. So now they're their own independent sovereign country, right? But then they demand marijuana, cigarettes, and pizza from the American government because they realize oh shoot, man, it's actually kind of hard to run our own country.
Yeah, so if that's not proof that one idea of socialism just ain't going to work, I don't know what it is. Because think about it. In Portland, and I hate to pick on Portland, but you think about what they do there. They have legal, quote, consumption amounts of just about any kind of drug you can think of.
Sure.
What are they upset about? Why are they rioting? I mean, if based on their logic,
they should all be numb and in a daze.
Exactly. Based on their logic, they do all the drugs. They sleep whatever they want to. There aren't that many guns up there, although Oregon and Washington have some great, hunting areas. Which is interesting about Washington State. Washington State has a hunting round law, which means you can't hunt game with anything under a 30 cal. You can't use 5.56, 9mm. I think you use 45.
Okay.
Those are considered hunting calibers. So now, with just that little thing aside, what are you rioting about out there? That's all I'm wondering. What are you rioting about? And another part about it is they burned stuff, they ran stuff, they threw rocks, this, and other, and that was peaceful?
Yeah. I think, as a Christian, I think that we all know that all of these things have been outlined in the Bible. We know that I think it's going to get a lot worse. And the only way any of this stuff is going to change, it's not going to happen by this podcast. It's not going to happen by a law. The only way any of this is going to get fixed is with Jesus.
Amen.
Yep.
I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
I just hope that, when he comes back, he explains people, during my time, we had spears, slingshots, and swords. In your era, you have firearms. You might want to, thy AR-47 and their word shall comfort me. I hate to go down that line, but, you have to think about that one too.
Sure. All right, guys, I think we are going to end it right there. So I want to give a big thanks to Kareem, Arthur, Joseph, Jason, Nelson, Kathy, Douglas. You're amazing. Kathy makes the greatest green chili sauce in the world. I think we're going to start a new business and we're going to bottle it. Big thanks to everybody that's on YouTube and Facebook. You can join us next week. We're going to be doing another chat on Clubhouse, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, we appreciate you guys. Yep, Couture, I want you on there next time. We'll have some great topic for you.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, guys. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Ron. Sorry I was late. I was eating supper.
Yeah, I just came in. You guys start at 5. I'm still working.
Oh, yeah, that's okay, man. I know you're out there hustling and making money. That's important.
I hear you, brother.
Thanks, guys. Be safe.
Have a great night.
Night.
Later, Jason.